back to another episode of Tech Pro Unicorn Podcast. I am your host, Michael Grace. Today, we are going to talk to an author whose book just came out, which is really, really cool. The book is called Pinnacle, 5 Principles That Take Your Business to the Top of the Mountain. For those of you that want to follow along at home before I share the guest information, one of the cool sites that's associated with this book is the author's actual website, and it's stevepreda.com, Preda, not ADA. We had a great conversation about how Steve should release a line of handbags and clutches and purses, and could probably do really well with that. But Steve Preda is the guest today, who's the author of this book. He's a leadership team coach whose passion is to help emerging privately owned businesses grow and thrive. He pursues it by simplifying and teaching management and strategy concepts used by large companies and elite consulting firms. His new book, which we just shared, Pinnacle, 5 Principles That Take Your Business to the Top of the Mountain, just came out in May. The best way to get it is either to search for it on Amazon, or again, if you're following along at home, you can go to Steve's site, and there's some really cool graphics that I definitely want to talk about during the podcast. But Steve, thank you for taking the time, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.
Absolutely. So how did you come, during your career to not only issue this book, but behind you is yet another book? So maybe talk to us a little bit about your journey and why, Pinnacle is the book that you decided to write right at this moment.
Yeah, so my journey, I started as a corporate employee, and then when I was 35 years old, I got kicked out of the bank I was working in. There was a summer with soft numbers, and I was a higher paid employee. So it pushed me out, and the next day I started my business called MB Partners, which was a consulting firm helping small, medium-sized businesses get ready for sale, finding investors. So that was my business. I ran for 10 years. Then I sold it to the private equity group, and that was in Hungary. And then we moved. We have my wife and I. We have 4 kids. We moved over here, and I started coaching entrepreneurs, and then I started coaching leadership teams. And then one thing led to another, and I started writing books. And this is how I got here. So essentially, what I do is I work with leadership teams, and they are kind of my laboratory, and I'm looking for ideas. I also have a podcast like you called The Management Blueprint. So I'm always mining. My big topic is frameworks, business frameworks, and I'm always looking for frameworks that entrepreneurs have used to fast track their growth, to make their business better. And I am mining those, and then I write book about them. But that's pretty much what I do.
I love it. I love talking to fellow kind of strategists, right? Those of you that have followed the podcast, I always talk about strategy, right? Have a plan, execute on the plan. So many people just kind of meander through their business growth, or they just kind of meander through their career. They don't really have a plan. They don't know where the end is. So I love the kind of one of the graphics when you load Steve's site. It has a great, kind of catching title. It says 5X in 5 years of 5 principles. And then it has this really cool graphic that I just love, right? It's playing on the pinnacle or the climbing the mountain, but it talks about a base camp, a quarterly lookout, an annual summit, a medium-term milestone, and then the pinnacle. Maybe talk a little bit, if you could, about just those kind of 5 stages.
So there are a lot of 5s here, right? There's 5X your business in 5 years with 5 principles, and there are 5 stages. So actually, those stages are the way we work with company, with entrepreneurial companies. I like to call them emerging growth companies. So 2 to 500 employee companies that already have a product or a service. They figured out how to sell that product, but they now want to build a business out of it. They want to scale. They want to build a team so that the owner's hand is not in all the pots. So that's what I do. And the 5 stages, when you're a climber and you want to ascend the mountain, then first you want to go to base camp, right? You want to acclimatize. You want to make sure that you are catching a good weather in the window, a good window in the weather when you can scale the mountain. You want to make sure you got all the right gear. You know exactly what your strengths and weaknesses are. So what we do with companies when we start working with them, we basically do a complete audit of the business to know exactly how they are doing on the 5 principles, which are people, purpose, playbooks, performance, and profit. And we figure out, okay, what are the low hanging fruits here that they can harvest relatively easily? What are the longer term goals? And we put together a roadmap for these companies so that we move as fast as they can up the mountain, and we meet them where they are, and we customize a journey for them so they can ascend the mountain towards the pinnacle. And these stages, so we start with a base camp, and then this is 2 days, and then we do a quarterly meeting, and then we have annual strategy sessions, and then we build towards 3-year milestones, and then we have a pinnacle. Actually, we start from the top. So the vision is there is a why, there's a pinnacle, there are the medium term and the 1 year, and we break it down, and we essentially determine what are those quarterly objectives that we have to do every quarter in order to get closer and closer to our pinnacle, which is the ultimate tangible long-term goal of the company.
There is so much that I love about that process, right? So many times when we engage a company, we engage on that first piece, right? We go in, we do the audit, we do the analysis, we do we might even do the roadmap, right? And we'll lay everything out, and everyone's like, yes, and the energy is high, and the commitment is high, and everybody is like, this is awesome. And then the life gets in the way, right? Life gets in the way of us personally. Life gets in the way of businesses, right? And they lose focus, right? They lose momentum. They lose their passion for what they were going to do, and shiny objects and challenges get in their way, and then they're like, oh, I got to run over here and I got to run over there, especially in small to mid-sized businesses where you're constantly distracted by all kinds of other things. So I really love the quarterly lookouts, right? When we do software stuff, we do quarterly business reviews. So I love those checkpoints quarterly. I love the annual summit, the 3-year milestones. Because if you don't have those, I love this so much, because I really believe like you have a flash in the pan moment where everybody has the best intentions, but then there's no accountability, right? You never come back and go, how are we doing against plan? We said we were going to do this. Are we doing it? Are we not? How do we need to change it? How do we need to transform it? Because a good plan should be a constantly living and changing and evolving plan.
Yes. So what you mentioned was the distractions that keep people from achieving their goals. I just had a conversation with one of my clients just an hour ago, and he was talking about the same thing, that he's got a hotel business, and he has a certain occupancy rate, and he just doesn't seem to be able to break through that and go from 70% occupancy to 90% occupancy. And he didn't understand why is that I'm not able to break through that. And we had a conversation. It turned out that this is his comfort zone. So as long as the occupancy is at least 70%, the house is not burning, he's making enough to basically keep the business running, and he doesn't have a strong enough reason to do all those things that are uncomfortable for him to get to the 90%. He procrastinates. He goes after the shiny objects. He wastes time and momentum. So what this planning is about is to push companies out of that comfort zone of just surviving, set a bigger goal, and rally the whole team around a bigger, versatile goal to raise the stakes, to show them that, okay, maybe you can survive by doing the same thing all over again, but you are missing out on a huge opportunity, because we could take this company to the next level. We could 5x the value of this company in 5 years if we do the right things, and you are living this, you're missing this opportunity if you are not focusing on that. And if they commit to it, then we break it down, and then every quarter, our goal is not just to stay alive, but to move the business forward to achieve our next quarterly milestone and the next one and the next one, so that eventually we get to it, get the whole team invest mentally and emotionally into these goals, so that we have the company take off. When you get into a plane, the plane increases speed and it's 200 miles an hour and it's still on the ground, but when it goes to 250 miles an hour, then it suddenly takes flight, and then the company, the plane keeps going up, and at some point you hear that the pilot actually takes off the throttle of the engine, because now we have the momentum to fly at altitude, and you don't have to work that hard to get up there. You already broke through, and you just have to stay. And if you go out to space, then you don't even need any propulsion. You just the momentum keeps carrying you. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We try to get businesses airborne to get through that really difficult taking off phase, and get them into space, so to say.
I love the analogy with flight, right? Because I fly all the time as a consultant, and the moment I dislike the most about flying is when that plane is at 200 miles an hour on the ground, right? Planes are not designed to do 200 miles an hour on the ground. They really aren't, right? They do best when they're in the air and when they're in flight. That's what they're dynamically designed to do. So, to me, the most frightening moment is takeoffs and landings, right? Once we're in the air, I can go to sleep, I can do whatever. And it's such a great analogy to businesses, because when I watch people and I love the comfort zone, right? Because they're just like, oh, well, I'm paying the bills, I'm paying my employees, it's okay. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? You could be so much more amazing, right? You could proactively be doing stuff. The proactive folks, right? The people that are in that growth mode and they want to engage and they want to do this, how does that correlate to kind of their success, both financially and personally?
Yeah, so every client is different. And you have people who are very proactive. They already are doing everything that they know themselves that they should be doing. So they come to me because they want to do more than what they know to do, basically. And then they embrace all the concepts, and they execute, and they get most of their rocks and their quarterly objectives done, and it's awesome. And then you have some other companies that they are in their comfort zone, and they need to be nudged out of the comfort zone. They know they need to do something. So the something, it's like buying a piece of exercise machine. You think that because you have the exercise machine, you've got the Peloton bike, you're gonna have to get on it because you paid $3,000, and if you don't do it, you're gonna feel guilty about it. So you're painting yourself into the corner by investing into the exercise machine. I mean, some of my clients do that. They hire me because they want to put themselves under pressure. They expect me to push them out of their comfort zone so that they start doing what they should be doing proactively. So that's a different type of client. And then within each client, you have people who are proactive, you have people who are more reactive, you have leadership team members who embrace the concepts, there are others who are skeptical. And that's part of the challenge to build a cohesive team. So you've got all these people, and they need to all buy into the vision and the plan. And some of them never buys into it, then it's just a reminder that maybe not everyone's going to be able to grow with this business, and that's okay too. There might be another position for them in the business, which is not on the leadership team or at another company. So not everyone makes it ultimately, but if the business owner wants to grow, then it's a great way to ignite that growth and to put the company on a path. It's basically it can be a forcing function as well. So when you commit to a quarterly cadence, then it's going to be very uncomfortable if you are not hitting your goals, and move for multiple meetings, and people don't want to have that discomfort. So they they know that I'm coming, and they start executing.
You touched on the people aspect, and I always see companies, they struggle probably the most with the people aspect of the business, right? It's uncomfortable to be like, oh, this person isn't really the right fit, right? They're not the right person in the right position to do what we need that person or that position to do. And human nature is to not be confrontational, so they just kind of let it exist, right? And then they wind up with this weak leg of the stool, because they don't want to address it, right? They don't want to change that person out, or unfortunately, maybe you need to let that person go, or maybe you need to offer that person growth opportunities, right, and really challenge them and provide them some education and training so that they can step up and be the performer that you want them to be. And I always tell people it's really hard to address the people aspect internally, right? It's much better to have an external consultant come in and really take an objective view of your people, right? Once they understand where it is you're trying to go, what mountain you're trying to ascend, right? To really give you that input as to whether or not that people aspect is the right mix, right? Or whether you need to move people around or change people up. Oftentimes, that's better served by having a consultant come in and really pay attention and evaluate that.
I would reframe this. So I don't think maybe the consultant does that, but what I am into more, and what Pinnacle is more into, coaching. So what
Mm-hmm.
we want to do is to create the context for what we're trying to achieve, and let you discover who are your A players, who are your A potentials, who are the people who are maybe don't have it in them because they don't have the drive, or they don't have the social skills, or they don't have the culture fit in them. So basically, let the team realize that, and then show them that, hey, if you want to reach your why, if you want to reach your pinnacle, then you need your A potentials and A players. They are going to take you there. Your B and C players not going to take you to the top. They're going to drag you back. So where do you want to spend your energy? Do you want to spend your energy on trying to fix your B and C players? Or you want to spend your energy on coaching and mentoring your A potentials so that they grow into A players, and to find growth opportunities for your A players who are hitting it out of the park, and they need a bigger challenge, they need a bigger opportunity to continue to stay engaged. That's an equally big challenge to find the growth for those people. And that's how you need to grow your business. Because if you're not, this is one more reason you need to grow it. Because if you're not growing, the best player, your A player, is going to leave because they want to grow. And if there's a ceiling, they're going to go somewhere else where there's no ceiling. So if you want a great place, a great company with great people, it's going to be a growth company that is able to attract A players, A potentials, and then you need the discipline of not cuddling your B's and C's, but trying to help them. But ultimately, if they don't have it in them, then let them find another company where they would be an A potential, or the other position in the company where they have the potential to become an A player. It's not it's a function dependent thing. It's not everyone has the potential to be an A potential in some kind of function or role, and help your people find it. And sometimes they won't, and that's okay too.
Right. So many companies, I think, start with a profit, right? They kind of start, again, on Steve's site. He has this other graphic that I really love, right? And it's the five principles that we're talking about, and profit's kind of the center, but the other ones that Steve mentioned, people, purpose, playbooks, and perform, are kind of surrounding it. So many people start with like, oh, we've got to grow 10% or 15%, which to me is kind of casting a vision, which I'm somewhat okay with, but they let kind of profit drive versus, to me, these other four principles. If you're executing on these other four principles, to me, profit is just a derivative, right? It just happens if you're executing. And then I really love that you took five, and then you multiplied it a bit, and each one got some additional context under it. So again, if you're on Steve's site, people gets broken down to include culture, which you mentioned, functions, coaching, which you also mentioned, and then purpose has vision, strategy, alignment. It's so you just make it kind of crystal clear in that graphic. Like these are the components that make up these that you have to kind of be hitting, and that will drive your profit.
Yeah, so profit is basically the oxygen of a business. I never forget. So I was born in Hungary behind the Iron Curtain, and in 1990, when the Iron Curtain came down, Berlin Wall came down, I went on a 1 year scholarship to a business school in the Netherlands, and I won't forget that our accounting teacher came in the first lecture, and he basically showed us that it's if there's no profit is not a dirty word. If the business doesn't make profit, it's not able to finance its growth, it's not able to pay and keep its people, it's basically not going to be able to innovate. So it is the oxygen. So it's not the end all and be all, but if you don't have oxygen, then you're not going to live. So what the way we look at profit is that if you are making sure that you've got the right people and they are in the right functions and you're coaching your people, you have your vision and your strategy down and you create the alignment and you figured out your playbooks and that you have ingrained them and you optimize your playbooks and then you're performing at a high level, then the byproduct is the profit. But the profit is also a measure of how well are you serving your customer. If you are providing a lot of value, you're going to make more profit. If your product is a Me Too product, which is not very different from anyone else, you're not really providing that much value and people can go elsewhere, then you're not going to make as much profit. So profit is a really good gauge of how differentiated your business is. So what we also do is it's a byproduct, but then we also say, okay, so how do we stack up against the elite of our industry, and what does it take us to engineer our business to get there, to be one of the best, and how do we sustain that position? And that's kind of the frontier of what we are talking about here is that it's a management blueprint. It's a blueprint to manage a business, to build a great business. Some people call it the business operating system. And this is the final frontier of that business operating system. How do you get to sustain at an elite level of performance, profitability? What does it take to engineer your business and to stay up there? And that's kind of the next level, which I'm really excited about it. But that's probably next year's podcast.
I love it. I talk a lot about benchmarking because partially I have a love-hate with it, right? I like it because it's good from a competitive analysis perspective. It's good to know kind of like where everyone else is. But I don't like it when companies go, we got to get to benchmark. I'm like, we got to get beyond benchmark, right? Benchmark is average to me. I don't want to be average ever at anything. So I always are like, okay, what are they doing to get to benchmark? And then what do we need to do to exceed benchmark, right? That differentiation. How do we differentiate our product or our service or our offerings? And it blows me away how little companies know about, the folks up in the C-level that are strategizing, how little they really understand about the bottom level where the magic happens, where they're actually serving their customers or delivering a product, how detached they are. And to me, that kind of the Disney model of you need to get down there and really understand what your customers want, how that experience is going, and then how do you improve it and let that kind of tactical knowledge influence your strategy of where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on. So you want to be really clear on your customer avatar, so to say, so that you know exactly who your ideal customer is and what you need to do for them and how are you different from all your peers and competitors. And then what you want to do is you build your brand promises. We also talk about the one phrase strategy, which is a concept was coined by Vern Harnish, but we basically go deep on how to create your one-phase strategy and how does it allow you to essentially synthesize your strategy into a simple concept so that everyone in the company understands what your strategy is all about. So they can operationalize at the ground level. What you say exactly is that to align everyone around the strategy. And a couple of examples of that is what I really love. I recently learned about this in a book called CEO Excellence. It's MasterCard, where they came up with this concept. They realized that only 15% of the transaction market is based on credit cards. And if they are competing with Visa, then essentially they are all competing, and MasterCard and Amex, American Express, and the others, they are all competing for the same 15%. So why don't we actually go to the 85%, which is cash based, and see if we can convert that cash into credit card and kind of swim in a blue ocean situation. So they came up with this phrase, kill cash. So that became their strategy, kill cash. And everyone understood, okay, we are killing cash. So that's our focusing. And MasterCard is going like that. I just got an email from one of my credit card companies that they are switching from Visa to MasterCard because MasterCard is gaining prominence. They are killing cash. Another example is IKEA. So IKEA has been dominating the furniture business for the last 40, 50 years. The largest competitor is JYSK, which is 1/10 of their size. The second largest competitor is 1/20 of their size.
Wow.
And how they do that is they have a really simple strategy, which is flat pack. So if you can disassemble that furniture, put it in a flat, air-free package that fits into the boot of your car, and you can take it home and you can assemble it yourself, that's a completely different type of business model. You can have instant access to your furniture the same night. It's much cheaper, and that's what they perfected. And everyone knows that this is the IKEA furniture, is a flat pack furniture. How do we achieve that?
Yeah, it requires thinking outside the box, and really kind of blowing up the model, right? Thinking differently or thinking bigger. Um, the other thing I love when authors and leaders do this on the site. If you can't tell, I'm stalking Steve's site, and it's influencing our discussion. But I love the scoring your business. So talk to me a little bit about the assessment that's out there, where folks can go and kind of rate themselves on the 15 business principles.
Yeah, so we have the 5 principles, people, purpose, playbooks, performance, and profit. And then you have 3 practices underlying each of them. So I call them the 15 pinnacle practices. And you can rate yourself on the 15 pinnacle practices, how well you are doing. So what I did with this this assessment is I defined what it looks like when you are mastering each of these practices. And then people can rate, okay, so how is my company doing on this practice? And then score themselves on all 15 practices, and the maximum score is 44. And then you can see what is your, actually I added the 6th practice, which is team, or 6th principle, which is team. And because that's also important, that you are building the team at the same time as you're focusing on these 5 principles, and you score on it yourself on each underlying practice, and then you can see how far up the mountain are you. So are you just in base camp or below base camp, or also are you making already progress? And you can then also see clearly what are your weaknesses and what you need to work on, and then you can even yourself you can evaluate what's our low-hanging fruit here. So how could we tick a few more boxes here? What could we do? You can go to the book, or you can give me a call, and I help you figure that out.
I love it. That was going to be my next question, because you also have kind of the stages, right? First stage is read the book, obviously, so that you can participate in the discussion, right? So read the book, then you have engage your team, and then commit to the journey. Can companies kind of do this on their own, or is it something where really they probably should reach out, or does that depend on maybe where they're starting from or how confident they feel in their ability to lead through the journey?
So I would ask you, can LeBron James play basketball on his own, or he needs a coach?
Hmm.
Or can Rafael Nadal play tennis on his own? I mean, sure, he can play tennis on his own, but he still hires a coach because he wants to be better. So that's one answer. The second answer is that yes, I mean, you can do everything on your own. And we actually had a big discussion because I have a co-author for this book, Gregory Cleary, who is the founder of Pinnacle Business Guides. And he was of the opinion that no one can really do this on their own. And I made the argument that yes, but some people will try anyway because we are entrepreneurs and we know better, and we're going to try. And I think it's fine to try, and people should try. And I think that they can do probably some or many of those things on their own as well. So wherever you are, if you are at the stage where you can only afford to buy a book for $10, then of course you will try it on your own, and that's completely okay. If you are a $5 million company and you don't have the time to figure it out, or your own, the best highest your highest activity is not to become a coach yourself, or you don't want to operate on yourself, then you will talk to a guide, and that's okay too. So wherever you are on the journey, and it's not just me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just the author or the co-author, but we have over 100 guides all over the country. So if you check out pinnaclebusinessguides.com, you can look up other guides, and you can choose a guide that you feel comfortable with, that is maybe near you geographically, if that's important to you, and talk to a guide at least, or you can try and do it yourself.
I love it. I want to talk a little bit about the other book you wrote, because that's still such of great interest, Viable, where you talk really about building a business that the entrepreneur or the owner can sell at some point, right? Sometimes businesses, I see it so often, they're based on that one person, right? And that one person exits, and then the business just kind of crumbles, because that person didn't build something that was sustainable. They built it around them, and then they want to exit and get paid a lot of money. And when investors look at it, they're like, "This is you, right?" I hate when business owners start a business and they call it their own name, right? They take the some of the designers and such, where but if they'll open a company that they want to scale to all these locations and eventually sell, and they call it their own personal name, and I'm always like, that's really attached to you. That's not really something that potentially you could stand up and and position for sale. Talk to me a little bit about Viable and some of the concepts in that book, and how you position businesses for growth and ultimately sale.
So Viable was an interesting book. So my previous life, as I mentioned it earlier, I was an investment banker, entrepreneur. I built my own investment banking firm, helping businesses create viable, helping entrepreneurs create viable businesses and then sell them. And then I became a business coach. So in this book, I basically bring together the two ideas, the two sides of the coin. And earlier in my career, I was really focused on finding the investor and flipping the business, selling the business. I wasn't so much focused on maximize. Well, obviously, we wanted to maximize the value of the business in that transaction, but I was not thinking long term. So, if this business they want to sell it now, then we figure out how to get the best possible opportunity for the seller now. And then when I became a business coach, what I realized that in many cases, my clients left money on the table. Because if I had known then what I know now, And if I was frankly, in a different business, I was a coach already, I could have helped them increase the value of the business, or even sometimes keep the business, not sell it, because the only reason they want to sell was that they were not making enough money. They were frustrated because the business wasn't run well, and they could have had the business make enough money for them and make it a fun thing to engage with. So that's why I bought the book. I wrote the book, and the book is basically leads you through this whole process of figuring out, okay, why am I business in the first place? So what am I trying to get to? What is the ideal life look like for me? And then work backwards. Okay, so if my ideal life is that if I am an author and speaker, what does it take for me to get there, and how is the business going to help me to get there? If my ideal life is to IPO my business and make $1 billion, then okay, so what do I have to do to get there? Or somewhere in between, and I want to sell it to a private equity group, or I want to transition it and get out of management and have other people manage it, but I still want to be involved. So what is your ideal life, and what is it going to take you in terms of financial investment to get to your ideal life, whether inside or outside the company? And where are you? What is the value of your business? How much do you have to grow over what time horizon? And then how you're going to get your business there, which is these management blueprints like Pinnacle, that's going to grow your business. And when you have grown your business, then what are all those things that you have to do in order to completely optimize the business for that transaction? And basically I go through all the steps of thinking about the transaction, the structuring of the transaction, and how to make it self-managing, and how to make sure that you optimize each piece of the business value. And then the transaction, what does it look like to sell the business in terms of the mechanics, and also what does it look like in terms of the emotional impact on the entrepreneur? So when you let go of the business, I sold my business and I was really excited about doing the transaction, but then there was a big void in my life because suddenly I didn't have that business, which was a big part of my identity, and I had to reinvent my identity, which was actually a pretty, somewhat painful and challenging process. So I share some of these stories, on my personal journey as well in the book. And then Pinnacle is basically, it's focusing on the management blueprint. So you have this whole journey of going from where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and how you transition. And Pinnacle zooms in into this piece of growing your business, uh, using business frameworks to grow your business around the 5 principles. And that's what Pinnacle is about. It's like Star Wars, you have the whole story, and then you have the prequel and the sequel, and the new Star Wars series, Obi-Wan Kenobi, it focuses on the few years before Leia and Luke, got into battle for the Death Star. That's kind of what I'm doing here with Pinnacle. There's this big journey, and I'm focusing on, okay, it's just a growth element. How do you grow the business to the size 5x it in 5 years? How do you do that?
Right. I love it. Right. I mean, for folks, to me, right, depending where you are in that journey, if you could sell your business today and have it just be like, okay, it'd be fine. Or you could invest 5 years, go on a journey, 5x your business, and then sell it. Depending on where you are in your retirement kind of, or it doesn't even have to be retirement, right? Your exit strategy when you want to exit. That to me seems like it's just a great investment, right? If you're doing a couple million and you can 5x that, and then sell at that point, obviously your exit would be much more profitable. Both times, right? Whether we've talked about viable or the more recent book, you've mentioned kind of starting with that end in mind, right? Like starting with the end vision of where we're going or what you want to do, as like almost the focus point that drives everything else, is starting with that end in mind. Maybe talk a little bit about how that applies to both concepts, whether you're trying to build a business to sell or to grow your business?
So Bible is more from the entrepreneur's perspective, the individual, the business owner. So their personal vision may not fully correspond with the company's vision because their ideal life may not even be the company, or it may, even if it's the company, it is the certain lifestyle perhaps that they want, or the wealth they want, or the impact they want to make personally as part of the company. The company has to have its own vision. And so both of them are visions, but one is the entrepreneur's, business owner's vision. What is their ideal life for them? And the second is, what is the vision for the company? What is why this company is here? What is their why? And what is their pinnacle? What is their long-term vision and the medium term? And sometimes some of my clients had an issue with this because let's say they wanted to sell their business in 3 years, and I asked them to with the leadership team to come up with a 10-year vision for the business, and they could not do it because they could not wrap their mind around what the company is going to do when they are not here. So their vision was just 3 years to sell the business. And we had to discuss that in order for you to sell the business, someone will have to want to buy it. And that person will only want to buy it if that business has a future beyond you. If that business ends with you, and after you're gone, there's no vision, why would anyone buy the business? The value of the business is the present value of the future cash flows. So what you need to have is you need to have the business on its own to have its vision that your leadership and your people are bought into, and let the company go on its own, and you are going to check out at some point. But whoever buys the company, they are interested in that business having its own vision, having its own momentum. And yeah, it so happens that you're going to get off the train at some point, and the train going to keep going. So the company has to have its own vision, and it can be a challenging concept for the business owner to embrace. And that's where it comes in, that you have to engage your team so that they come up with it, not you on your own, because they will have to buy into it and make it happen.
I love it. There's so much that I love about kind of what you're doing. I love the book. I love the strategy. But I love that you break it down. Then I love the Pinnacle Business Guides.com, right? So while Steve was explaining kind of the last answer, I've been stalking Pinnacle Business Guides. So I love that you're taking a concept, you're creating, a roadmap for how you go ahead and execute it, and then you're kind of wrapping it with, not just have Steve come in and shepherd us through, right? Steve's one guy and can't be everywhere, right? But
I'm just part of the movement. Part of the movement. And my co-author, Greg Cleary, who is the founder of Pinnacle Business Guide, he came up with the 5 principles, and I came up with the 15 practices. So basically, he came up with, okay, this is the concept, and I kind of drilled down to make it a little bit deeper. But it's really our co-production, this book, and he is a very charismatic leader, and he leads the Pinnacle Guides organization, and I'm just a guide in this organization.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's a whole swirl of people and stuff, right? That really is different than I think other authors that write books or other people that put strategies out there that typically tend to kind of fall short on accountability and execution. What I like about this is there's a swirl of things, right? If you engage kind of holistically in all of this, that guides you and takes you on. I love the journey concept because that's really what you're doing. You're embarking on this journey, and you're not alone, right? You have all this input, you have all this help, and I'm sure it starts with reading the book, obviously, and understanding the concepts, but then there's kind of people and process in place to take you up on that journey, right? It's really to me, it's very different than. We have a lot of authors on the podcast, and this, with it all combined, is different. It's more of a system than it is just the book.
It is a system, and if people feel like, okay, reading a 250-page book is too much for them, they can download a summary of the book from stevepreda.com, and they can read the summary and decide, okay, am I going to go to the book next, or I'm going to give Steve a call, or going to give one of the Pinnacle Business Guides a call. They can take it from there as well.
I love it. Lots of good content. We'll put the pinnaclebusinessguides.com site link down below, but it's pinnaclebusinessguides.com. And they've got all kinds of cool stuff as well. Not nearly the cool graphics that Steve has, but they've got some cool articles. They're talking about how do you address the Great Resignation on their blog articles and such. So there's lots of cool content. It's all current, which is also nice to see, and it all maintains that alpine journey. Makes me want to go to Switzerland or the Alps with all the cool pictures that I see. So very cool, Steve. Thank you for taking the time, sharing your new book, and for the work that you're doing to help business owners grow their business or leaders grow their companies. It's great work, much needed. I appreciate you leading with strategy. It's awesome.
Well, thank you, Michael, for inviting me on the show and being so engaged with with the topic and then so enthusiastic. I love it when someone is eats it all up, and you definitely do that, and hopefully some of your audience also resonates with it. So thank you for the opportunity to share my story and about the book.
Absolutely.